Today, I want to address accusations of anti-Semitism that stem from calling Israel a settler colonial state. So first, people are being called anti-Semitic for saying that Israel is a colonial state because it supposedly denies Jewish indigeneity to the region. And secondly, we hear the claim that it is anti-Semitic because it mischaracterizes the historical context and the nature of Jewish presence in Israel-Palestine. So I want to begin by immediately putting to rest the notion that the term settler colonial and its application to Israel-Palestine is a new fad or a new anti-Semitic trope, as its detractors would like us to believe. In a recent Atlantic piece, a staff writer states that the so-called jargon of settler colonialism and its application to Israel-Palestine is a morality tale that links Indigenous struggles globally rather than providing a real political analysis. But Indigenous struggles are linked globally through a shared arsenal of tactics of containment, by global geographies of commerce, by traveling and adaptive racial ideologies, by geopolitical power formations, and by the vice of international capital. And as Robin Kelly and others have argued, what was European fascism but the Holocaust, but colonialism come home? This political analysis is not a new framework nor newly applied to Palestinian struggle. Settler colonialism describes a form of colonization where newcomers choose to dominate and replace. In the 1960s and 70s, the Research Center of the Palestinian Liberation Organization and the socialist organization in Israel, Matzpen, used this framework extensively, as did a much longer list of Palestinian, Israeli, and other scholars. And I'm going to share in the chat a bibliography that you can reference on this literature. As Rashid Khalidi notes in the introduction of his book, The 100 Years' War on Palestine, Palestinian liberation has always been both an anti-colonial struggle and a dueling national struggle. Likewise, the Zionist project for a Jewish state in Palestine was a struggle constituted by both Palestinian colonization and the co-formation of Jewish nationhood. Now the resurgence of the settler colonial framework has provoked and relaunched a bid within the public sphere by those who defend Zionism for who are the real indigenous people to Palestine. And at the heart of this contention is the question of what this claim authorizes in the name of both self-defense and self-determination. Clear today, Jewish indigeneity is being used to police pro-Palestinian resistance to occupation and genocide. One recent example that demonstrates the pervasiveness of how this claim is being deployed against critics of Israel involved the departure of Wanda Nanabush from her position as Indigenous curator at the Art Gallery of Ontario, when she was accused of denying Jewish Indigenous rights to Israel. And I'll also post that letter in the chat. To be clear, there's extensive archaeological evidence of Jewish history in historic Palestine and religious connection over the years. Many of our families arrived as refugees, including both my maternal and paternal great-grandparents. Jewish people do share a history with Indigenous peoples of survival in the face of ethnic cleansing, assimilation, and genocide. But what Jewish people do not share with Indigenous people is a current history of being colonized. As Mahmoud Mamdani put it in Neither Native Nor Settler, quote, Palestine could have been a refuge for Holocaust survivors in the absence of Zionism. There could have been a Jewish society, a Jewish population there without a Jewish state. Reformist Zionists like Hannah Arendt urged the necessity of thinking about Jews as migrants rather than acting as settlers, since migrants have the right to refuge, but not the right to colonize, displace, or oppress. Instead, Jewish people became indigenous as a political identity in the process of settlement, and Palestinians, the non-natives, as Mamdani puts it, because their own belonging threatened the Jewish rationale for reclamation. But the term indigenous embodies relationality. Among other things, it refers to the international struggle of people to assert their nationhood and jurisdiction over ancestral lands against the arrival of newcomers who become dominant through violence. Decolonization is a joint imperative. The identity of the colonizer and the settler must also be undone. with its assumed destiny to the land of others fully renounced and reparations undertaken to restore justice to the colonized. But the modes of decolonization that can make space for settlers and natives within settler colonial states are not self-evident nor uncontested. As Robin Kelly writes, whether the structure of settler colonialism persists or can ever be fully dismantled is a critical source of debate in the historiography. I would argue that to imagine a transformation of the state into something other than a vehicle for cycles of violence requires actually more than a framework of settler colonialism. It demands we reckon with indigenous Palestinian articulations of justice to find that bridge to peace and let right be done. Thank you.